The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most moons and housed the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Today, 847 different alien species had gathered for one purpose. They wanted to decide what to do about humanity. Admiral Han Su stood alone in the center of the Great Council chamber. Around him, thousands of alien delegates sat in curved rows that reached up toward the ceiling. Some had scales, others had fur. Some breathed gas, while others needed special suits filled with liquid. But they all had one thing in common. They all feared humans. Han Su was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's defense forces. No weapons, no guards, no fancy decorations. Just one human standing before the most powerful council in the galaxy. He had been waiting here for 3 hours while the aliens argued among themselves. The chamber fell silent as Supreme Commander Kelth of the Wraithen Empire rose from his seat. Kelth was 12 feet tall with red scales and yellow eyes that glowed in the dim light. Behind him sat the other leaders of the council. There was Princess Zara of the Crystal People, General Voss of the Machine Race, and dozens of others who ruled star systems across the galaxy. Human. Kelth's voice boomed through the chamber. His words were translated into thousands of languages by the station's computers. "We have made our decision." Han Su said nothing. He just stood there with his hands behind his back, waiting. Kelth held up a crystal tablet that glowed with alien writing. "For 3,000 years, your species has been contained within your home system. The Treaty of Eternal Containment was signed after your people brought war and death to half the galaxy. We showed mercy then. We allowed you to live in peace on your little world." The alien crowd made sounds of agreement. Some hissed, others clicked, and a few made noises that sounded like breaking glass. Han Su's expression never changed. "But peace has made you weak," Kelth continued. "Your people spend their time making art and music. You explore your oceans and study your animals. You have forgotten how to fight. You have become harmless." Princess Zara stood up next. Her body was made of living crystal that sparkled in the chamber's light. When she spoke, her voice sounded like wind chimes. "The galaxy has grown tired of watching over you. We have bigger problems now. Pirates attack our trade routes. New threats come from beyond our borders. We cannot waste resources keeping you locked in your system anymore." General Voss was next. He was a robot made of black metal with red lights for eyes. "The Council has voted. We offer you 2 choices, human. You can surrender all your weapons and technology. You can allow us to place governors on your world. You can become a protected species under our direct control." The chamber was completely silent now. Even the air recycling system seemed to have stopped making noise. Han Su waited. "Or," Kelth said, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the huge room, "we can finish what we started 3,000 years ago. We can turn your system into empty space. No more Earth, no more humans, no more problems." The aliens waited for Han Su to beg. They expected him to fall to his knees and ask for mercy. They thought he would cry or scream or try to bargain. Instead, something happened that none of them expected. Han Su smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was not the smile of someone who had heard good news. It was cold and sharp like a blade made of ice. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that no one else did. The smile made Kelth take a step backward. Princess Zara's crystal body stopped sparkling. General Voss's red eyes flickered as if his systems had glitched. Across the chamber, aliens who had lived for hundreds of years felt something they had not felt in a long time. Fear. "That is quite an offer," Han Su said. His voice was calm and pleasant, like he was discussing the weather. "You want us to give up everything and become your pets? Or you want to kill us all? Those are your only choices," Kelth said, but his voice was not as strong as before. Han Su nodded slowly. "I see. And how long do we have to decide?" 72 standard hours, Princess Zara said. 3 of your Earth days. 3 days, Han Su repeated. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of creatures that ruled entire star systems. "That should be enough time." "Enough time for what?" General Voss asked. Han Su's smile grew a little wider. "To consider your generous offer, of course." The way he said generous made it sound like he was talking about poison. Several aliens in the front rows shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had expected the human to be afraid. Instead, he seemed almost amused. Captain Li Na waited in the small chamber outside the council room. She was Han Su's aide and had been watching the meeting through the security feeds. When the Admiral walked out of the chamber, she fell into step beside him. "Sir?" she asked quietly. "Send the message," Han Su said as they walked toward their small transport ship. "All of it. Everything. Operation Lazarus is now active." Behind them, the council chamber erupted in noise as 800 alien species began arguing about what the human smile had meant. Some said it was just bravado. Others worried that humans had some hidden weapon. A few suggested that maybe they should have left the humans alone, but it was too late for second thoughts now. In 3 days, they would have their answer. The galaxy would learn whether humanity had really become weak and harmless during their long imprisonment, or whether 3,000 years of forced peace had given them time to prepare for something that would make their previous wars look like children's games. As their ship left Nexus Prime and headed toward the Sol system, Han Su sat in his captain's chair and continued to smile that cold, knowing smile. In 72 hours, the galaxy would remember why they had been so eager to cage humanity in the first place. The only question was whether it would be too late to matter. The message reached Earth 12 hours after Admiral Han Su left Nexus Prime. It was not sent through normal communication channels. Instead, it traveled through a network that most humans did not know existed. Hidden transmitters built into asteroids, secret relay stations on the dark side of moons, and quantum entanglement devices buried deep beneath Earth's surface all carried the same simple code. Lazarus is awake. Dr. Yang Su was eating breakfast in her small apartment in Seoul when her watch began to vibrate in a pattern she had never felt before. 3 long pulses, then 2 short ones, then 3 long again. She had been trained to recognize this signal when she was 20 years old. Now she was 55 and had almost forgotten it existed. She left her coffee on the table and walked to her bedroom closet. Behind her winter coats was a small panel that looked like part of the wall. She pressed her hand against it and felt a brief warm sensation as it scanned her DNA. The panel slid aside to reveal a narrow tunnel. Yang Su had not been in this tunnel for 30 years. She crawled through it for what felt like an hour, following lights that turned on as she approached them. Finally, she emerged into a room that took her breath away. The Prometheus facility stretched out below her like an underground city. Massive machines that had been silent for decades hummed with new life. Hundreds of people in white coats moved between workstations that displayed information in languages she barely remembered how to read. Above it all, holographic displays showed star maps and weapon designs that made her old military training come flooding back. "Dr. Yang," a voice said behind her. She turned to see General Cho Min walking toward her. The general looked exactly the same as she had 30 years ago, which should have been impossible. "General," Yang Su said, then paused. "How are you still so young?" Cho Min smiled. "One of the benefits of working down here. Time moves differently when you are preparing for a war that might never come, but it looks like it is coming after all." They walked together through the facility. Yang Su saw things that made her question everything she thought she knew about human technology. Robots that seemed to think for themselves. Computers that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Weapons that could turn matter into pure energy. "How long has this been here?" she asked. "Since the day we signed the peace treaty," Cho Min replied. "The moment we agreed to stay in our system, we began planning for the day they would break that treaty." They stopped at a massive viewing window that looked out into an even larger chamber. Inside, Yang Su could see the construction of something that hurt her eyes to look at directly. It was a ship, but it seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. Parts of it flickered in and out of reality. "What is that?" she whispered. "The first of our new fleet," Cho Min said. "We call them ghost ships. They can travel between dimensions, become invisible to any sensor, and strike without warning. We have been building them for 3,000 years. Yang Su felt dizzy. 3,000 years? But humans only live for 100 years at most. "Not all of us," Cho Min said quietly. "Some of us volunteered to be changed. To live longer, to remember the old ways, to make sure humanity would be ready when this day came." They continued walking through the facility. Yang Su saw laboratories where scientists worked on projects that seemed like magic. In one room, researchers were teaching computers how to think like humans. In another, engineers were building machines that could repair themselves and grow stronger over time. "The aliens think we have become soft," Cho Min explained as they walked. "They think 3,000 years of peace have made us weak. They see our art galleries and music halls and think we have forgotten how to fight." They stopped at another window. This one showed a training facility where soldiers practiced combat techniques that Yang Su had never seen before. They moved like dancers, but every movement was designed to kill. Some of them wore armor that seemed to be alive. Others fought without any protection at all, their skin somehow stopping bullets and energy beams. We never forgot, Cho-Min continued. We just learned to hide it better. Every painting our artists made included hidden blueprints for weapons. Every song our musicians wrote contained encrypted military codes. Every story our writers told was actually a training manual for warfare. Yang Su stared at the soldiers below. How many people know about this? Enough, Cho-Min said. Not everyone needed to know the full truth, but enough people knew pieces of it. Scientists who thought they were working on peaceful projects were actually building weapons. Engineers who believed they were designing mining equipment were actually creating war machines. Teachers who thought they were studying history were actually planning strategy. They reached the facility's command center. Here, dozens of officers sat at stations that monitored the entire galaxy. Yang Su could see displays showing the positions of alien fleets, the locations of their military bases, and detailed maps of their home worlds. You have been watching them, she said. For 3,000 years, Cho-Min confirmed. Every diplomatic mission to Earth included hidden sensors. Every trade agreement came with secret spy devices. Every cultural exchange was actually an intelligence-gathering operation. We know more about our enemies than they know about themselves. Colonel Yoon-jae approached them. He was a thin man with scars on his hands and a look in his eyes that reminded Yang Su of a hunting wolf. General, he said with a crisp salute. The Ghost Battalion is ready for deployment. Good, Cho-Min replied. How many targets? All of them, Yoon-jae said with a smile that was almost as cold as Admiral Han Su's. We have teams ready to strike every major alien military installation in the galaxy. They will never know what hit them. Yang Su looked back and forth between them. You are going to attack first? We already have, Cho-Min said calmly. The attacks began the moment Admiral Han Su smiled at the Galactic Council. While they were deciding how to destroy us, we were destroying them. Engineer Bae Ki joined their group. She was a young woman with oil stains on her clothes and excitement in her eyes. General, the factories are now running at full capacity. We are producing ships and weapons faster than we ever thought possible. What factories? Yang Su asked, but she was starting to understand. Every asteroid in our system has been hollow for 2,000 years. Baek Hai explained happily. Every moon has factories built into its core. Even Earth itself is mostly manufacturing facilities now. We have been preparing for this war longer than most alien civilizations have existed. Yang Su sat down heavily in a nearby chair. This is impossible. How did we keep this secret for so long? General Cho-Min sat down beside her. Because we learned the most important lesson from our first war with the aliens. We learned patience. We learned to think in centuries instead of years. We learned to smile and pretend to be harmless while we prepared for the day they would try to destroy us again. She gestured toward the displays showing alien fleets moving toward human space. They think they are bringing destruction to a weak and peaceful species. Instead, they are walking into a trap that has been 3,000 years in the making. Yang Su looked around at the massive facility, at the impossible technology, at the people who had dedicated their entire lives to preparing for this moment. What happens now? Cho-Min stood up and walked to the command center. Now we show the galaxy what humanity learned during our long sleep. We show them that peace does not mean weakness. We show them that the most dangerous predator is the one that waits patiently for the perfect moment to strike. She pressed a button on the main console. Across the facility, alarms began to sound. Not warning alarms, but victory alarms. The sound of a sleeping giant finally awakening after 3,000 years of patient dreams. Signal all stations, Cho-Min ordered. Begin Phase 2 of Operation Lazarus. It is time for humanity to leave our cage. Admiral Han Su walked into the Galactic Council chamber exactly 72 hours after he had left it. The same aliens sat in the same seats, but everything else had changed. Where before there had been confidence and arrogance, now there was confusion and fear. The reason for their fear was obvious. Half of the council members were missing. Supreme Commander Kelth stood up when Han Su entered, but his massive frame seemed smaller somehow. His red scales had lost their shine and his yellow eyes kept darting around the chamber as if he expected an attack at any moment. Human, Kelth said. his voice no longer booming with authority. "You have returned." "As promised," Hansu replied calmly. He walked to the center of the chamber just as he had 3 days ago. But this time, he was not alone. Captain Ryu Bin and Major Kang Mi flanked him, their faces showing the same cold confidence as their admiral. Princess Zara of the Crystal People was still there, but her body was flickering weakly. Several cracks ran through her crystalline form. "Where are the others?" she asked, her voice sounding like broken glass. Hansu tilted his head slightly. "I am sorry, could you be more specific?" "General Voss," Kelth said urgently. "Commander Thrak, Admiral Zeke, Princess Mira, dozens of our leaders. They have not been seen for the past 2 days." "How unfortunate," Hansu said in the same tone he might use to comment on bad weather. "I hope nothing terrible has happened to them." Dr. Lim Wan stepped forward from behind the human delegation. She was a small woman with sharp eyes who carried a tablet computer. "According to our records," she said in a cheerful voice, "there have been several unfortunate accidents across the galaxy in the past 72 hours. She began reading from her tablet. General Voss suffered a complete system failure while inspecting his robot army. It seems his own soldiers decided he was defective and recycled him for spare parts. Commander Thrak died when his personal flagship's life support system malfunctioned. Quite tragic, really. The gas that kept him alive was replaced with gas that dissolved his breathing organs. The remaining aliens made sounds of horror. Some began backing away from the human delegation. Admiral Zeke, Dr. Lim Wan continued, was found dead in his private chambers. Cause of death appears to be poisoning from his favorite food. Someone had replaced his usual meal with something that looked identical, but contained a toxin that only affected his species. She looked up from her tablet with an innocent smile, and Princess Mira appears to have suffered an allergic reaction to her own crown. The metal spontaneously changed its molecular structure and began producing radiation that was fatal to her particular biology. Kelth's claws extended from his hands. "You did this! You murdered them!" Hansu raised an eyebrow. "That is a very serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" "Who else could have done it?" Princess Zara demanded. "Well," Hansu said thoughtfully, "it could have been anyone who knew. Enough about their personal habits, their security systems, their biological weaknesses, and their daily routines. It would have to be someone who had been watching them very carefully for a very long time." He paused and smiled that cold smile again. "But you are right. It was us." The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens jumped from their seats, some reaching for weapons that were not there. Others activated personal shields or called for their guards. But nothing happened. Their weapons did not work. Their shields did not activate. Their guards did not come. "How?" Kelth whispered. Major Kang Mi stepped forward. She was a woman with short black hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. "We have been studying you for 3,000 years, she said simply. "We know exactly how your technology works. We know your military codes. We know your weaknesses. We know everything about you." She activated a holographic display that showed real-time footage from across the galaxy. "While you were meeting here to decide our fate, we were demonstrating that your fate was already in our hands." The display showed alien military bases that had been perfectly functional 3 days ago. Now they were empty ruins. Massive war. Fleets floated dead in space, their crews missing and their weapon systems destroyed. Entire planets that had been military strongholds were now broadcasting surrender messages. "This is impossible," Princess Zara said weakly. "Our defenses are the strongest in the galaxy. Our technology is thousands of years more advanced than yours." Captain Ryu Bin laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Your technology is older than ours," he said. "You stopped innovating 3,000 years ago because you thought you had already won. We never stopped improving." He activated another display that showed a human ship appearing and disappearing in different locations around an alien fleet. "Our ships exist in multiple dimensions at once. Your sensors cannot detect us because we are not entirely in your reality. Your weapons cannot hit us because we are never exactly where you think we are." Sergeant O'Gill joined the group. He was An older man with scars on his face and a calm manner that somehow made him more frightening than if he had been shouting. "Every time one of your species visited Earth," he said quietly, "we learned something new about you. Every diplomat who came to negotiate was actually teaching us how to destroy your people. Every trade representative who brought gifts was actually giving us samples of your technology to study and improve upon." Dr. Lim Wan pulled up another screen. "We know that the Vrathan Empire uses a centralized computer system to control their entire military. It only took us 47 minutes to take control of that system and turn their own armies against them. We discovered that the Crystal People's homeworld depends on a specific frequency of light to maintain their population. We simply adjusted the frequency of their sun by 0.003%. They now have approximately 6 months before their entire species becomes extinct unless they surrender. The machine race believes they are superior because they do not have emotions, but they do have programming. Programming that we have been slowly rewriting for the past millennium. Their own logic now compels them to serve humanity." Kelth fell back into his seat. "What do you want?" Han Su walked closer to the Supreme Commander. 3 days ago you offered us 2 choices: surrender or die. We found both options unacceptable." He gestured to his team. "So we have prepared a counteroffer. You will immediately withdraw all military forces from the Sol system. You will recognize human sovereignty over a 50 light-year radius around Earth. You will pay reparations for 3,000 years of unlawful imprisonment." "And if we refuse?" Princess Zara asked, though her voice was barely a whisper. Major Kang Mi smiled. "Then you will join your missing colleagues. We have detailed plans for eliminating every species represented in this council. We know exactly how to kill each of you in ways that will look like accidents, diseases, or equipment failures. But we prefer not to," Han Su added. "Dead enemies cannot learn from their mistakes. Living enemies who have been taught proper respect can become valuable allies." Sergeant O'Gill stepped forward. "You wanted to know if 3,000 years of peace had made us weak. The answer is no. 3,000 years of forced imprisonment gave us time to study every one of you. We learned your languages, your cultures, your technologies, and your fears. We learned patience," Captain Ryu Bin added. "We learned to plan for centuries instead of years. We learned to smile and appear harmless while we prepared to destroy anyone who threatened us." Dr. Lim Wan closed her tablet. "The old Galactic Council is finished. Half of your leaders are dead, and the other half are about to surrender. The question now is whether you want to be part of the new order we are building, or whether you want to become another historical footnote." Han Su looked around the chamber at the terrified aliens. "You have 24 hours to decide, but I should mention that this time the choice is not really yours to make. This time, humanity holds all the power." He turned and walked toward the exit, his team following behind him. At the doorway he paused and looked back. "Welcome to the human age," he said with that cold, knowing smile. "Try not to disappoint us again." The aliens chose war. 6 hours after Admiral Han Su left Nexus Prime, the largest military fleet in galactic history began moving toward the Sol system. 300,000 ships from 47 different species, carrying weapons that could destroy entire planets. They came from every direction, surrounding Earth's solar system like a closing fist. Supreme Commander Kelth led the assault personally. His flagship, the Deathbringer, was the size of a small moon and carried enough firepower to sterilize 100 worlds. Around him flew the surviving ships of the Vrathan Empire, their red hulls gleaming with weapon ports. "Today we end the human threat forever," Kelth announced to his fleet. "Today we finish what we should have done 3,000 years ago." But as the alien armada approached the edge of the Sol system, something impossible happened. They simply stopped existing. Fleet Admiral Shin Ho watched the destruction from the command bridge of humanity's new flagship, the Prometheus Rising. The ship existed in 7 different dimensions at once, making it invisible to alien sensors and invulnerable to their weapons. Around him, the bridge crew worked calmly at stations that controlled technology the aliens could not even imagine. "Contact," reported Commander Moon A from her cybernetic station. "Alien fleet detected at the system's edge. 300,000 ships approaching from all vectors." "Weapons status?" Shin Ho asked. "All dimensional cannons are online. Captain Jiangsu replied from the weapons console. Target locks established on every enemy vessel. Shin-Ho nodded calmly. Fire. The destruction was beautiful and terrible. Streams of energy that existed between dimensions reached out from hidden human ships and touched the alien fleet. Where the energy made contact, matter simply ceased to exist. Ships that had taken decades to build vanished in microseconds, leaving not even debris behind. The Deathbringer lasted longer than most because of its massive shields and armor. For almost 30 seconds, it held together as reality collapsed around it. Kelth had time to scream one last order before his flagship folded in on itself and disappeared. All targets eliminated, Jiangsu reported. No survivors detected. Time to destruction of the entire fleet? Shin-Ho asked. 4 minutes and 17 seconds, Moon-A replied. New galactic record. But the humans were not finished. While the aliens had been gathering their great fleet for one massive attack, humanity had been quietly positioning their own forces throughout the galaxy. Ships that could not be detected had been waiting in orbit around every major alien world for decades. Dr. Song Tae stood in the command center of the Prometheus facility, watching displays that showed the real-time status of the galactic war. Each screen represented a different star system, and on each screen the same thing was happening. Human ships were appearing out of nowhere and destroying everything the aliens had built. Phase 1 complete, she reported to General Cho Min. The alien military no longer exist. Casualties on our side? Cho Min asked. None, Song Tae replied with satisfaction. They never saw us coming. The technology that made this possible was so far beyond alien understanding that they had no way to fight back. Human ships moved through space by folding reality around themselves. They could appear anywhere instantly, attack from multiple dimensions at once, and disappear before their enemies could even realize they were under attack. Captain Jiangsu piloted his fighter, Reaper's Edge, through the debris field that had once been the Helios Collective's home fleet. His ship was not much larger than an old-fashioned car, but it carried weapons that could destroy a battleship with a single shot. This is almost too easy, he said to his squadron over the communication system. They fight like they are still living in the past. That is because they are, replied Squadron Leader Park 1 from her own fighter. While we were learning to bend reality, they were relying on the same weapons they used against our ancestors. Around them, the space battle continued. But it was not really a battle. It was more like a farmer harvesting crops. Human fighters moved through the alien formations, destroying everything they touched with casual efficiency. The aliens tried to adapt. They changed their tactics, modified their weapons, and even attempted to retreat. Nothing worked. Every time they thought they understood how human technology functioned, the humans revealed new capabilities that made their previous advantages obsolete. Commander Moon-A sat in her special chair on the bridge of the Prometheus Rising, her mind directly connected to the ship's computer systems. Through quantum entanglement, she was simultaneously controlling the cyber warfare, attacks on 1,000 different worlds. Their computer networks are pathetic, she reported to Admiral Shin-Ho. 3,000 years old and never properly updated. I can rewrite their programming faster than they can even detect the intrusion. On her screens, alien defense systems were turning against their creators. Missile batteries that had been built to protect alien cities were now firing on those same cities. Robot armies that had been programmed to defend their makers were now hunting them through the streets. The Vrathan Empire's entire robotic workforce just received new orders, Moon-A said with amusement. They are now dismantling every military installation on their homeworld and building monuments to human superiority instead. But the most devastating weapon in humanity's arsenal was not technology. It was information. Dr. Cho Yoon had spent her entire life studying alien biology and psychology. She knew exactly which chemicals would cause each species to experience crippling fear, which frequencies of sound would disrupt their nervous systems, and which types of light would cause them to become helplessly confused. Broadcasting terror frequencies to the Helios Collective worlds, she reported from her laboratory. Their crystalline nervous systems are shutting down from sensory overload. Beginning biological warfare against the Ashtar Republic, added her assistant, Dr. Kim Ray. Their immune systems have no defense against the modified viruses we created specifically for their species. Colonel Nam Ki led the Phoenix Corps, humanity's most elite soldiers. They had been genetically modified and technologically enhanced until they were no longer entirely human. They could survive in the vacuum of space, adapt to any environment, and interface directly with alien technology. Planetary assault on Theta 7 complete, he reported as his team emerged from the ruins of what had been the galaxy's most heavily defended fortress. No survivors. The planet is now under human control. His soldiers moved like living weapons, each one capable of destroying an entire alien army single-handedly. They wore armor that could repair itself, and weapons that grew stronger with each enemy they killed. The defensive grid around Proxima 9 has been neutralized, reported Major Lee, Sol from another assault team. Their shields are down and their orbital platforms are destroyed, ready for colonization. Across the galaxy, the same scene was repeated on 1,000 worlds. Human forces appeared without warning, destroyed all resistance in minutes, and moved on to the next target. The aliens had no time to coordinate a response, no way to communicate with each other, and no weapons that could harm their attackers. In less than one day, 3,000 years of alien dominance came to an end. Admiral Shinho stood on the observation deck of his flagship, looking out at the wreckage of the alien fleet that had come to destroy Earth. Behind him, the blue and green planet continued to spin peacefully, its people completely unaware that the greatest war in galactic history had just been fought and won. "Status report," he said to his command staff. "All alien military forces have been eliminated." Commander Moon A reported. "Their computer networks are under our control. Their homeworlds are defenseless. Resistance?" Shinho asked. "Minimal," Captain Jiang Su replied. "Most of them surrendered as soon as they realized what they were facing. The few that tried to fight were destroyed so quickly that others learned not to resist." Dr. Song Tae's voice came through the communication system from Earth. "Admiral, we are receiving surrender transmissions from over 200 alien governments. They are requesting terms for peace." Shinho smiled the same cold smile that had become humanity's signature. "Tell them we will consider their requests. After we have finished demonstrating the price of threatening Earth." He turned to look at his staff. "The aliens wanted to know if 3,000 years of peace had made us weak. They wanted to test our resolve. They wanted to see if we still remembered how to fight." He gestured toward the empty space where the alien fleet had been. "I think we have answered their questions." Colonel Nam Ki's voice crackled over the communication system. "Admiral, Phoenix Corps has secured the last alien stronghold in this sector." "What are your orders?" "Begin Phase 3, Shinho replied. "It is time to show the galaxy what the new order looks like." The war was over, but humanity was just beginning. Across the galaxy, species that had ruled for millennia found themselves facing a choice they had never imagined: join the new human order or face extinction. Most chose to join. The few that did not quickly discovered why resistance was futile. Diplomat Lee. So stood in the great assembly hall of what had once been the Vrathan Empire's capital world. Around her, representatives from dozens of species that had been enslaved by the reptilian overlords for centuries listened as she explained their new reality. "The Vrathan Empire is finished," she said in a calm, pleasant voice that somehow carried to every corner of the massive chamber. "Your former masters are dead or in hiding. You are now free to govern yourselves as you see fit." A small furry creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a rabbit raised one of its 6 arms. "What is the price of this freedom?" it asked in a squeaky voice. Lee So smiled. "There is no price. Freedom is a gift that humanity gives freely to all species that accept it. But surely you want something in return," said a tall, thin being with blue skin and large black eyes. "Tribute, soldiers? Resources?" "We want only what we have always wanted," Lee So replied. "The right to live in peace without being threatened by those who think they are superior to us." General Park. Young watched the diplomatic meeting through a secure communication link from his command post on the planet's surface. Around him, his staff monitored the liberation campaigns that were taking place simultaneously on hundreds of worlds. "The Helios Collective's slave worlds are declaring independence," reported his aide, Major Kosan. 17 species that have been in chains for 2,000 years are now forming their own governments. "Any resistance from the Crystal people?" Park Young asked. "None that matters," Kosan replied. "Most of their military commanders committed suicide when they realized their situation was hopeless. The survivors are begging to join the Human Alliance." Park Young nodded and turned his attention to another screen. This one showed the liberation of the machine worlds, where organic species had been kept as living batteries to power robot cities. The mechanical overlords have been shut down, reported Captain Yu Min from that front. Their slaves are destroying the robot factories and building new homes for themselves. But the most important work was being done by Dr. Cho Yun and her team of biological engineers. They had spent 3 days undoing 3,000 years of genetic manipulation that the aliens had used to keep other species under control. The fear programming has been removed from the Ashtar population, she reported from her mobile laboratory. They should start developing natural courage and independence within a few weeks. What about the intelligence suppressors? Asked her assistant, Dr. Bei Yu. Already neutralized, Cho Yun replied. The species that were kept deliberately stupid by their alien masters will begin recovering their natural intelligence within days. Some of them are already showing signs of advanced problem-solving abilities. The liberation process was not without its challenges. Some species had been slaves for so long that they did not know how to be free. Others had been genetically modified to depend on their alien masters for survival. A few had been so thoroughly brainwashed that they actually preferred slavery to freedom. Colonel Nam Ki and his Phoenix Corps handled the most difficult cases. They were humanity's ambassadors to species that communicated through violence. Diplomats who spoke the language of force. The warrior clans of Epsilon 5 have accepted our terms. He reported from a world where combat was considered the highest form of art. After we defeated their greatest champions in single combat, they recognized humanity as the new alpha species. Casualties? General Park Young asked. None on our side, Nam Ki replied. Their weapons could not penetrate our armor, and their combat techniques were about 2,000 years out of date. It was like fighting children. What about the Sigma Collective? Park Young asked, referring to a hive mind species that had enslaved dozens of worlds. We introduced a new idea into their collective consciousness, Nam Ki said with satisfaction. The concept of individual freedom. Their hive mind is currently tearing itself apart as individual members break away and form their own thoughts. But humanity's greatest weapon in the liberation campaigns was not military force or advanced technology. It was hope. Ambassador Choi Jun stood before the newly formed Council of Free Worlds, a gathering of species that had been enemies for millennia, but were now working together under human guidance. The old galaxy was built on fear, she told them. Fear of the strong by the weak, fear of change by the powerful, fear of each other by everyone. We offer you something different. We offer you a galaxy built on cooperation. A representative of the former slave species raised a tentacle. How do we know you will not become like our previous masters? How do we know you will not enslave us in turn? Choi Jun gestured to the viewing screen that showed Earth in the distance. Because we remember what it feels like to be caged. Because we know that true strength comes not from controlling others, but from helping them become strong themselves. She activated a holographic display that showed the new trade routes, communication networks, and defensive alliances that humanity was building. We do not want to rule you.
We want to work with you.
We want to build something that has never existed before. A galaxy where every species can reach its full potential. Dr. Song Tae monitored the psychological profiles of the liberated populations from her command center on Earth. What she saw amazed her. Species that had been broken by millennia of oppression were healing with remarkable speed once the sources of their trauma were removed. The recovery rates are exceeding all projections, she reported to the Human Leadership Council. These species are not just returning to their pre-slavery states. They are evolving beyond anything they were before. Explain, said General Cho Min. The aliens kept them suppressed, but they also inadvertently strengthened them, Song Tai explained. Species that survived 3,000 years of oppression have developed incredible resilience. Now that they are free, they are channeling that resilience into rapid advancement. She showed them data that illustrated her point. The Ashtar Republic has advanced their technology by 500 years in just 1 month. The former slave worlds of the Sigma Collective have formed a research alliance that is producing scientific breakthroughs daily, and they are grateful, added Diplomat Lee. So from her position at the new galactic capital, grateful in a way that ensures their loyalty will last for generations. But not all of the galaxy's former rulers accepted their new situation peacefully. Some alien species attempted to regroup and launch counterattacks against human forces. They quickly learned that 3,000 years had not just given humanity time to prepare weapons, but also time to understand their enemies completely. Captain Jiang Su led a small squadron of fighters against the last Vrathan holdout fleet. His 12 ships faced 300 enemy vessels in what the aliens thought would be an easy victory. "They still do not understand," he said to his squadron as they approached the enemy formation. "They still think numbers matter more than technology." The battle lasted less than 10 minutes. The human fighters moved through the alien fleet like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons turned the massive alien ships into expanding clouds of gas. The few enemy vessels that tried to retreat found that human ships could follow them anywhere, even into other dimensions. "Last enemy ship destroyed," reported his wingman, Lieutenant Park Su. "No survivors." But the most devastating defeats of the alien remnants came not from military action, but from the defection of their own people. Species after species that had served the old empire chose to join humanity instead. Major Kang Mi stood before a group of former Vrathan officers who had requested asylum on Earth. These were beings that had once been humanity's enemies, now begging for protection from their own people. "Why should we trust you?" she asked them bluntly. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Commander Vex, lowered his massive head. "Because we have seen what you do to your enemies and what you do to your friends. You destroy those who threaten innocent people, but you protect those who choose peace. You killed billions of our people in the old wars," Kang Mi said. "Yes," Vex replied, "and we were wrong. We thought strength meant domination. You have shown us that true strength means protection. We want to learn from you." Kang Mi studied the group of reptilian warriors. "Learning requires humility. Are you prepared to start at the bottom and work your way up through honest service?" "We are," Vex said simply. And so the transformation of the galaxy continued. Species that had been enemies for millennia learned to work together. Technologies that had been hoarded by the powerful were shared freely with all. Worlds that had been strip-mined and polluted were restored to their natural beauty. Dr. Huang Rei oversaw the massive reconstruction projects that were turning dead worlds into gardens. "The environmental restoration is proceeding ahead of schedule," she reported. "Most of the former industrial planets will be habitable again within 5 years." "What about the species that were made extinct by the old empire?" asked her colleague, Dr. Lim Jin. "We are bringing them back," Huang Rei said with satisfaction.